The moon hung low over the Alpha's estate, its silver light washing the grounds in an almost otherworldly glow. Lanterns floated along the paths like captured stars, casting pools of warm light across the polished stone. The air carried the scent of cedar, burning sage, and something wild, something she felt vibrating deep inside her chest. Tonight was the moonlit ceremony, the sacred gathering where packs celebrated lineage, strength, and loyalty. Every eye in attendance would measure her, every whisper could betray her. She moved through the crowd as effortlessly as smoke, her dark dress brushing the tops of ornate carpets, eyes alert and calculating. A soft smile played across her lips, but beneath it, her pulse raced. She was not entirely human, and every instinct within her told her to run, to shift, to reveal the wolf that pulsed beneath her skin. Yet she held it in as she always had. Tonight, she had to be invisible. Guests murmured as she passed. "Who is she?" One asked, voice tinged with curiosity and fear. Another leaned in closer. "I heard she's an outsider. Strange, powerful." She felt the whispers like brushstrokes on her skin, thrilling and dangerous all at once. To the crowd, she was a mystery. To herself, she was survival. From across the circle, eyes found her. Piercing, intense, unyielding. The Alpha, Kale, he stood taller than anyone else, his presence commanding the attention of every wolf in the room. And yet, it wasn't his stature or authority that unnerved her. It was the way he looked at her, the way his gaze seemed to see through every layer she had carefully built. She paused near the ceremonial fire, pretending to admire the intricate carvings etched into the stone floor. Her claws itched beneath the smooth fabric of her gloves. Her ears twitched at the faintest movement in the shadows. The wolf inside her stirred, drawn to the scent of power and danger. She swallowed hard and straightened her shoulders, letting the mask of calm slide into place. The first flames of the ceremony roared higher, illuminating the faces of the pack and sending reflections of light dancing across the polished stone. Her heart betrayed her secret, racing at the heat of anticipation and the thrill of recognition from the Alpha, who, without a word, already knew there was more to her than met the eye. And in that moment, as the wind carried the scent of earth and moonlight, she understood the truth that had always been her burden and her gift. Tonight, nothing would remain hidden. Her chest still burned from the thrill of being seen without truly being known. Even as she glided through the crowd, smiling politely at curious guests, every instinct screamed that Kale's gaze followed her. She could feel it, sharp and deliberate, slicing through the layers of human disguise she had so carefully crafted. A brush of silk against her arm made her flinch slightly, just enough for a spark of awareness to ripple through her. Kale was closer than she realized. His presence was magnetic, almost suffocating, and it forced her wolf deeper into hiding, claws restrained beneath soft gloves. She hated the way her pulse betrayed her, quickening with every step he took, even when he was across the room. "Enjoying yourself?" The question came low, smooth, and deliberately close, as though he had materialized from the shadows. His voice carried authority, curiosity, and a quiet challenge all at once. Her fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. I am," she said carefully, letting her voice remain steady. "The ceremony is beautiful." He studied her, eyes narrowing just enough to unsettle her. "Not everyone appreciates beauty the same way," he said, voice almost a whisper. "Some see only what they expect, some see more than they should." Her stomach clenched, a mixture of fear and something far more dangerous, intrigue. His words carried weight, a challenge and a recognition she could not ignore. He wasn't just observing her, he was testing her, unraveling her, teasing at the edges of the secret she had fought so hard to bury. A nearby guest stumbled, nearly colliding with her. Instinctively, she leaned back, catching them, and her hands brushed Kale's in passing. The spark was immediate, subtle but undeniable, like lightning under calm water. She pulled away, forcing a laugh. "Careful," she murmured, though her throat tightened with tension. "Or," he prompted, his lips curving into a faint smirk that made her pulse spike. "Or you reveal something you didn't intend." She forced herself to look away, but she could feel the weight of his eyes even from across the room. Every glance, every brush of their movements whispered of something forbidden. The unspoken bond between them pulsed stronger with each heartbeat, drawing her in, teasing at her restraint. Her wolf stirred beneath the surface, claws itching, heart racing, senses screaming with the thrill of recognition, danger, and desire. She had hidden for so long, blending in with humans, suppressing the truth of her nature. Yet tonight, under Kale's gaze, she realized that hiding would only become harder, and the pull between them only stronger, and in the shadows of the ceremony, where whispered speculation clung like smoke, she knew, Kale already suspected there was more to her than anyone else could ever see. The ceremony's flames crackled higher, shadows dancing across the gathered pack like restless spirits. She could feel the tension coiling in the air, a pressure that made her skin tingle and her pulse spike. Tonight wasn't just about appearances. It was about proving worth, strength, and loyalty. And in the Alpha's world, one misstep could unravel everything. Gather. A voice rang out, sharp and commanding. The pack turned as Kale stepped forward, his presence commanding absolute attention. A test of loyalty and courage will begin. All who wish to be recognized tonight must participate. Her heart skipped. She had anticipated observation, scrutiny, perhaps curiosity, but a challenge, the thought of failing, of exposing herself, sent a shiver through her spine. She forced her shoulders back and joined the throng, keeping her movements deliberate, controlled. Every instinct whispered to stay hidden, to slip back into the shadows, but she could not. Pack members lined up, their eyes darting toward her, some sneering, some curious. Looks like the outsider is stepping forward. A young wolf whispered, just loud enough for her to hear. The jab stung more than she expected, a reminder that no matter how carefully she hid, there were always those who would seek to tear her down. The challenge was simple in description, a test of agility, strength, and control. Yet the stakes were anything but simple. She hesitated at the first obstacle, claws digging into her gloves, instincts threatening to take over. One false move, one slip, and her secret would be exposed to the entire pack. Kale's eyes were on her, unwavering, like a tether she could not ignore. The pressure of his gaze made her heart hammer, her wolf thrumming beneath the surface. Slowly, deliberately, she moved, sidestepping the first obstacle with practiced ease. Whispers rippled through the crowd, some approving, some skeptical. Then came the test of balance, a narrow beam suspended above the ceremonial fire. Her breath hitched, instincts screaming to leap, to shift, to become something she could not yet reveal. But she forced herself to move carefully, every step precise. When a rival wolf smirked and tried to unsettle her with a shove, she caught herself, steadying her weight without faltering. A faint murmur went through the crowd. Kale's gaze sharpened, a spark of interest, and something more lighting his eyes. He had noticed her control, her poise, and perhaps, for the first time, the hint of power she had been hiding. When she landed safely at the end, the pack's chatter was a mixture of surprise and grudging respect. She had passed, but only barely, and the danger of discovery had never felt so real. And yet, as Kale's smirk met hers across the circle, she realized that the challenge had done more than test her skill. It had drawn him closer, made him curious, and perhaps unwillingly impressed him. Her chest burned with exhilaration and fear. One thing was clear, tonight the game had changed, and the Alpha was no longer just a distant observer. He was a force she could not ignore. The echoes of the challenge still reverberated through her body long after the ceremony had moved on. In the quieter corners of the estate, away from prying eyes and murmuring pack members, she allowed herself to breathe. The adrenaline had faded, leaving a hollow ache that only solitude could soothe. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of the secret she carried, the wolf that stirred beneath her skin, hungry to be free, yet bound by the fragile human mask she wore. She found a secluded balcony overlooking the moonlit gardens. The silver glow of the moon pooled across the marble, reflecting in her dark eyes. Her reflection seemed almost like a stranger, a reminder of the duality that defined her, human and wolf, visible and hidden, yearning and restrained. Every fiber of her being longed to run, to shift, to shed the constraints of pretense. But the risk was far too great, and yet, even in isolation, her thoughts kept returning to Cale. His eyes, those relentless, piercing eyes, had followed her throughout the challenge. She could still feel their weight, as if they had brushed against her soul, probing, recognizing, daring her to let him see more than she intended. Her wolf stirred in response, impatient, sensing the connection she tried so hard to deny. She leaned against the railing, listening to the distant laughter and chatter of the pack, and for the first time allowed herself a moment of introspection. The alpha carried burdens she could only guess at: the weight of leadership, the constant scrutiny, the unyielding expectation to protect his pack above all else. And yet, in him, she sensed a vulnerability, a flicker of something deeply human beneath the commanding presence. Something that mirrored her own hidden truths. A sudden rustle behind her made her spin instinctively, claws itching beneath the gloves she wore. But it was only a gentle breeze, or so she told herself. Her heartbeat settled, but the lingering sense of being observed did not fade. Cale had a way of lingering in her thoughts, of appearing in the periphery of her mind even when he was not there. She allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible sigh. In the stillness, she realized the truth she had been avoiding. She was drawn to him in a way she could not fully control. Every glance, every unspoken word, every brush of proximity in the ceremony had left a mark she could not erase. And yet, the risk of revealing her true self, of letting him see the wolf beneath the human skin, was a gamble she could not yet afford. The moonlight caught the faint glimmer of her eyes, sharp and wild, reflecting a storm she had always kept hidden. Her fangs, her claws, her wolf's instincts, all dormant for the moment but alive, simmering. Somewhere deep inside, she knew the moment would come when hiding would no longer be an option, and when it did, everything would change. The night had deepened, and the music of the moonlit ceremony had faded into soft murmurs and the occasional clink of glasses. She moved carefully through the crowd, her senses taut, alert to every whisper, every glance. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, aware of Cale's presence even before she saw him. There was a tension between them now, a thread so taut it felt like it could snap with the slightest touch. He appeared beside her as if drawn by the same invisible pull, a shadow at her side, silent and commanding. "You've done well tonight," he murmured, voice low, almost reverent, yet carrying an edge that made her pulse quicken. "Thank you," she said, forcing casualness into her tone, but the slight brush of his arm against hers sent an electric shiver through her. She wanted to pull away, to retreat into the safety of her human disguise, yet some invisible force rooted her to the spot. Cale's gaze lingered on her, sharp and unyielding. "You're hiding something," he said softly, not as an accusation, but as a statement. "I can feel it. It's unusual, dangerous." Her stomach clenched. His words weren't a threat. They were recognition, and recognition was more dangerous than any rival, more revealing than any test. She forced a breath through her nose, willing herself to remain composed. "I am nothing extraordinary," she replied lightly, letting her words dance over the truth. He smirked, a dangerous curve of his lips. "Nothing extraordinary doesn't have instincts like yours." His hand hovered near hers, close enough to brush, close enough to tempt, but never quite daring. The pull between them was suffocating, drawing them into an unspoken dance neither could fully control. A sudden commotion near the ceremonial fire drew her attention. Guests laughed nervously as a young wolf fumbled, nearly tripping. She instinctively stepped forward, instincts flaring for just a heartbeat, her claws brushing the firewood's edge. But she stopped, forcing herself to remain human, to mask the surge of power that had risen. Cale's sharp intake of breath told her he had noticed. He didn't scold, he didn't question. Instead, he simply held her gaze, the intensity between them thickening the air. There was a warning there, a silent promise, and something else, a pull she could not deny. Her wolf growled softly in protest, frustrated at the restraint, aching to step into the open. Her heart pounded, both from fear of discovery and the undeniable attraction between them. One wrong move, one slip, and everything could unravel. And yet, every nerve in her body screamed that she needed to risk it. For a moment, under the soft glow of lanterns and the watchful eyes of the pack, time seemed to stand still. And she realized, with a quiet thrill and a stab of fear, that the danger was no longer just from rivals or rules. It was from the irresistible pull of Cale himself. The night promised more than ceremony and tradition. It promised temptation, and her wolf hungered for it. The ceremony's echoes had faded into the whispering night, leaving the estate cloaked in shadows and the silver glow of the moon. She slipped quietly through the gardens, careful to avoid the lingering guests and patrolling pack members. The air was cool, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, and with each step, the tension coiled tighter in her chest. She needed space to breathe, to think, to feel the wolf beneath her skin without the weight of eyes or expectation. Her heart still thumped from the brush of Cale's gaze, from the unspoken pull that had drawn her closer to him despite her careful restraint. The wolf stirred, restless, impatient, eager to run, to leap, to shed the human shell she wore. She reached the edge of the forest, shadows embracing her like a familiar cloak, and closed her eyes for a moment, tasting the night with senses heightened beyond what humans could ever perceive, running away from the party. His voice was low, smooth, impossibly close. She spun on instinct, heart leaping, claws itching beneath the soft gloves. Cale stepped out of the shadows, eyes gleaming in the moonlight, and for a heartbeat she considered fleeing. I needed air, she said, forcing a casualness she did not feel. He studied her, the faintest smirk tugging at his lips. Or you needed to shift. The words were a challenge and a recognition. Her pulse surged, a mixture of fear and thrill. She swallowed, struggling to keep her human mask in place. I am careful, he repeated, stepping closer, so close that the heat radiating from his body brushed against her arm. Yet here you are alone at the edge of the forest under the moon. Alone with me, how careful can you really be? Her wolf growled softly, a rumble of protest, eager to leap, to answer him not with words, but with the raw power that surged beneath her skin. She shook her head, forcing her hands to stay at her sides, grounding herself. Some risks are necessary, she admitted, voice low. Cale's gaze sharpened, intense, unrelenting. Necessary, he echoed, or inevitable. They circled each other like predators aware of a shared hunt, tension crackling in the cool night air. Every step he took drew her in, yet she resisted, knowing that yielding could reveal more than she was ready to share. The pull between them was almost physical, a magnetic current neither could deny. Her instincts bristled, sensing the power simmering in him, the danger, the dominance, and the strange familiarity of a connection she couldn't yet name. And when his hand brushed hers almost accidentally, or perhaps deliberately, the wolf within her shivered, claws twitching with desire and defiance. You're stronger than you let anyone see, he murmured, voice a low growl that resonated in her chest. And dangerous, I know, she whispered, and the words felt like a confession, though she had spoken them to no one. Under the moonlight, amidst the shadows of the trees and the quiet hum of the night, something unspoken passed between them. Trust, tension, and a bond neither could yet define. And as she stood there, heart racing and senses alive, she knew that the night had only just begun. The final night of the moonlit ceremony was alive with firelight and anticipation. The pack had gathered in the ceremonial circle once more, the air thick with expectation and the sharp tang of tension. She moved cautiously, her heart still racing from the moonlit encounter with Cale in the forest. Every instinct screamed to stay hidden, to remain human, to protect the fragile balance she had maintained for so long. And then it happened. A rival, a young wolf whose envy had been simmering for weeks, stepped forward, eyes glinting with malice. Perhaps our mysterious guest isn't as ordinary as she seems, he called out, voice loud enough to carry across the circle. Laughter rippled through the crowd, curious glances snapping toward her, her stomach dropped. She froze, every muscle tensing, claws itching beneath the gloves. The wolf inside her roared silently, sensing the danger, sensing the threat to everything she had worked to hide. but there was no time to flee. The murmurs grew into whispers of shock and disbelief. Kale's gaze snapped to her, sharp and commanding. "Step forward," he said, his voice low but carrying the authority of the alpha. The rival smirked, delighted to see her hesitation. The world seemed to slow. Her chest heaved, every instinct screaming to shift, to reveal the power she had kept buried, yet she resisted, until a tremor of loss and anger surged through her. One flicker of movement, one uncontrolled breath, and the change began. Fur erupted along her skin, claws extended, eyes flashing amber as the wolf within claimed its space. Gasps rose from the crowd. The pack stared, frozen between awe and shock. She had no choice now. Concealment was gone. Her human disguise shattered beneath the full moon's light. Kale moved instantly, his body a shield between her and the astonished pack members. "Enough," he commanded, voice like thunder. "She is under my protection." The rival stumbled back, eyes wide in disbelief, and a murmur of unease spread among the wolves. Some whispered admiration, others fear. She could feel the pack's judgment, the weight of exposure, the precarious balance of loyalty and politics threatening to topple. Her wolf growled softly, restless, but Kale's hand on her shoulder anchored her, calming the storm within. His touch was steady, protective, and yet there was an unmistakable spark, a recognition, a connection, a claim that made her pulse surge in ways both frightening and thrilling. "You shouldn't hide," he murmured, close enough for her to feel the warmth of his breath. "Not from me." Her lips parted, words caught in her throat. She wanted to speak, to argue, to retreat, but the truth was undeniable. The secret she had carried for so long had been torn into the open, and now, under the moonlight and the eyes of the pack, there was no turning back. Chaos swirled around her, yet for the first time, she felt a strange sense of clarity. The wolf within roared, the pack watched in stunned silence, and Kale's presence grounded her in a way no fear could undo. Tonight, everything had changed. The ceremony would continue, but nothing would ever be the same. The crowd froze, eyes wide in shock as the transformation completed. Fur shimmering in the moonlight, claws gleaming, amber eyes ablaze with fierce intelligence and raw power. She breathed deeply, sensing the surge of strength that only the wolf within could command. The pack had never seen anything like this, and for a moment, even Kale seemed taken aback by the sheer intensity of her presence. The rival who had exposed her took a step back, fear flashing across his face. The wolf within her snarled low, a warning rumble vibrating through the ceremonial circle. Every muscle coiled, ready to protect herself or him. Kale's hand found hers, anchoring her in the storm of instinct and fury. "Control it," he said, voice low, commanding, yet not unkind. "Let them see your strength, but not your danger." Her wolf snarled again, but she obeyed, stepping forward with deliberate precision. The rival lunged, perhaps foolishly, perhaps driven by envy, but her reflexes were unmatched. In a blur of movement, she struck, forcing him back without injury, her claws grazing the earth. The pack gasped as her power radiated outward, controlled yet undeniably feral. Kale's chest rose and fell rapidly, pride and amazement flickering across his features. His protective instinct surged, but he did not interfere. He knew, as did she, that this was her moment, her proof of strength, of worth, of survival. And in this moment, under the full moon and the weight of the pack's judgment, her bond with him ignited. "You're remarkable," Kale murmured, stepping close, his eyes drinking in her form. "Dangerous, and mine." A thrill shot through her chest, a pulse that set her wolf ablaze and made her human heart skip. Every fiber of her being responded to him. The alpha, the man who had seen through her disguise from the beginning, who had drawn out the wolf she had tried to hide. She pressed closer, senses alert, not to attack, but to connect, to claim, to acknowledge what had always been inevitable. The rival backed away, eyes wide with disbelief, while the rest of the pack murmured, a mixture of fear, awe, and respect rippling through the crowd. She had stepped into her power fully, and the world around her shifted. No longer just a mysterious outsider. She was a force, a protector, a mate in waiting. Kale's hand on her shoulder tightened slightly, grounding her. "You've shown them." He said softly, "Now show me, the rest of you." Her heart thudded, eyes locking with his, and she let herself lean in, wolf and human entwined, strength and vulnerability dancing together. Tonight, nothing could unseat her from this revelation. She had embraced the wolf, embraced her power, and unknowingly she had also embraced the bond with the alpha she could no longer deny. And as the moonlight bathed them both, the pack witnessing, she realized the truth she was no longer hiding. She was unleashed. The aftermath of the ceremony hung over the estate like a storm cloud. The firelight had faded, the guests had dispersed, but whispers of her revelation lingered in every corner. Some pack members admired her courage, speaking in hushed tones of the strength she had displayed. Others, wary and skeptical, questioned her loyalty, her intentions, even her very right to stand beside the alpha. She stood in the quiet of the great hall, her wolf form receding as she reverted to human, though the amber glow of her eyes betrayed the power still simmering beneath her skin. Her body ached, every muscle still humming from the adrenaline and instinct she had unleashed. She had faced exposure, humiliation, and judgment, and survived. But survival came at a cost. The fragile balance of the pack's unity now teetered dangerously. Cale approached silently, his presence a solid anchor in the sea of uncertainty. "They are divided," he murmured, voice low enough for only her to hear. "Some will respect you, some will resist you, but I will not let them harm you." Her pulse quickened at the weight in his words. There was the same intensity in his gaze that had drawn her from the start, a promise that he would stand by her, a claim she could feel as deeply as any physical bond. "I don't need protection," she said, though her voice wavered despite her attempt at firmness. "I can handle myself, I know," Cale replied, stepping closer, letting his hand brush hers. "But not all battles are fought with claws and fangs. Some are fought with trust, with alliances, with hearts." She exhaled, letting the tension slip slightly, yet the tension in the pack remained palpable. Whispers from the gathered members drifted like shadows, questions of allegiance, fears of power, jealousy of her abilities. She knew that winning Cale's trust had been only the first hurdle. Earning the respect of the pack, and proving that her strength was a boon rather than a threat, would take time. And yet, amid the uncertainty, one thing was undeniable: their bond had deepened. Each glance, each subtle touch, each unspoken recognition between her and Cale strengthened the invisible tether that had drawn them together since the first moment of the ceremony. She met his gaze, amber meeting steel, and felt an unspoken promise pass between them. "We face them together," she said finally. Cale's lips curved into a rare, private smile. "Together," he echoed, letting the word settle between them. Outside, the moon shone high, bathing the estate in silver light. The pack may have been divided, whispers of doubt still swirling in the shadows, but for the first time, she felt the clarity of purpose that came with claiming who she was, both human and wolf, and the knowledge that her alpha, her mate, would stand beside her through it all. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, with scrutiny and tests of loyalty, but for the first time, she didn't feel fear. She felt power, and she felt love, raw, dangerous, and undeniable. The estate was quiet now, the remnants of the moonlit ceremony fading into memory. Only the moon remained high and luminous, casting silver streaks across the gardens. She stood at the edge of the clearing, heart still racing from the events of the night. The pack's whispers and judgments had settled into a cautious respect, but none of that mattered now. What mattered was the pull, the undeniable force that had drawn her to Cale from the moment their eyes met. He appeared beside her, silent and commanding as ever, but softer in his gaze tonight. "It's over," he said, voice low and intimate, carrying the weight of unspoken emotion. "The pack has seen you for what you are, and I have seen you for what you are meant to be." Her chest tightened, every nerve alive with anticipation. She had hidden for so long, restrained the wolf within, forced herself to blend in with humans, and denied the truth of her bond. But here, under the moonlight, with Cale at her side, the barriers fell away. She could feel it, his strength, his claim, his desire, and it mingled with her own, fierce and consuming. Cale stepped closer, tilting her chin gently upward with a hand that was both tender and possessive. "You are mine," he whispered, the words both promise and declaration. "My mate, my wolf, my heart." Her lips parted in a breathless smile, amber eyes locking with his steel gaze. "And you are mine," she murmured, letting herself finally embrace the truth she had denied for so long. Her wolf surged in response, a thrilling, pulsing energy that she no longer tried to hide. Their connection flared in a brilliant spark of light and sensation, fated bond igniting in ways that words could never fully capture. The air around them hummed with power and passion, a tangible reminder that this was not merely desire. It was destiny fulfilled. Cale lowered his forehead to hers, and in that quiet intimacy, the world narrowed to just the two of them. No judgment, no pack politics, no rivalries could intrude here. Only the bond they had both fought to recognize, the bond that had drawn them through fire, secrecy, and danger, remained. As the first tendrils of dawn kissed the horizon, the pack gathered at a respectful distance, witnesses to what had been sealed. Their alpha and his mate stood united, a force of strength, love, and destiny. The whispers of doubt were replaced with awe and reverence. She pressed closer, resting her hand over his heart, feeling the steady, powerful beat. Together, she whispered, together, he echoed, sealing the promise with a tender brush of lips against hers. The wolf within her howled softly, not in warning, but in celebration. And in that moment, under the watchful moon, the pack, the night, and the bond that had drawn them together, she knew this was only the beginning. She had found her place, her power, her love, her mate, and nothing could ever take it away.